We welcome now our guest is Robert Johnson. He is a member of the Mississippi House of Representatives. He's the minority leader, serves District 24, includes Adams.
94.
94, pardon me, I said that wrong. Adams, Franklin, and Jefferson counties. Is the vice chair of the House State Affairs Committee. Representative Johnson, thanks for coming in, sir.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So the Democratic Party issued a press release. We received it here at SuperTalk, of course, being a member of the press.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was entitled, Mississippi Dems and Leaders Around the State Issue Statements. New poll shows voters are putting Medicaid slashing Senator Hyde Smith on notice. So you had a statement in there, as did the party leader, Sheck Taylor. Also, Derek Simmons, he's the Senate minority leader. You guys all had statements in there.
I haven't seen the press release. I've given a couple of town halls, so I'm sure it's a quote I'm sure it's right. I just don't know which one you're referring to.
All you really said here is I'll just read the quote from the Democratic Party's press release. Mississippians are waking up and understanding that we need to change elected officials who do not deliver for our state.
Yes.
And Cindy Hyde Smith is number one on that list. She is not.
I absolutely did say that.
Okay. She has not delivered for this state or the country. She has voted to cut crucial funding that will benefit our state. We are going to send her packing and elect a leader who will put Mississippi first.
That's our hope, yes.
Okay. Who you running?
We're working on some people.
Okay. To run for U.S. Senate?
Yeah, absolutely.
26.
Viable candidate, one that has extensive experience, has done great public service work, and so we're looking to put him out there.
Okay. So you have somebody in mind, it sounds like.
I do. No formal announcement has been made, but he is a prosecutor, a district attorney, and he has a vast amount of experience.
Okay. And so what would your hope be then, Representative Johnson, if you were to be fortunate to replace Senator Hyde Smith and with a Democrat U.S. Senator? What would you like to see that senator work on? I would
like to see them work on things that are meaningful for the state of Mississippi, just like Congressman Thompson has been doing. I see a lot of legislators, elected officials who move around this state promoting all the good things they've done with all the money that the state has available, all the state surplus. And nobody mentions the fact that the only reason we have that surplus, not the only reason, but the major reason we have the surplus is because of the American Recovery Act and all of the other pieces of legislation that were passed with Democratic leadership, and the only person that voted to deliver that kind of funding to the state of Mississippi has been Representative Benny Thompson. Every other federal elected official voted against all the funding that has been beneficial, that has been attributed to the surplus that we have done, that we have used extensively to do things here in the state of Mississippi. So we'd like to see, somebody else elected that will have the same kind of interest in promoting what works for the state of Mississippi. Senator Wicker has been, to a certain extent, helpful at least on one or two pieces of legislation, but Cindy Hyde Smith has been absent on all of them.
Okay, so are you specifically talking about the American Rescue Plan, also known as ARPA?
Yeah, that's one, and there are several other pieces of legislation that I don't have right in front of me, but primarily ARPA, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and we're still spending ARPA funds.
Okay. Well, so have you considered the fact that before President Joe Biden was elected into office in the year 2020, that would be President Trump's final year, there were major funding measures that were under the guise of COVID relief funds.
Absolutely.
A bunch of money. Republicans did vote for that.
They did vote for that, but I'm talking about what else would you do? COVID was an epidemic. There was nothing else left to do but provide funding for people who were and for citizens and for states who were suffering under the burden of what that epidemic did.
Okay.
But the ARPA funds were a purposeful, well thought out idea of what states needed for their infrastructure and to create economic development and create opportunity and jobs in their state. And they voted no. The COVID funds, everybody voted for COVID. Everybody wanted those funds to come. They had no other choice. That had to happen. Okay. But ARPA was a direct interest in terms of what do you need? you're a state that 29% of your roads are either impassable or either not up to spec. What do you need? We'll give you roads to fix those roads and bridges. In terms of your water systems and your drainage systems, how old are your pipes? Oh, they're all 120, 125 years old. What do you need to make that happen? What do you need to get rid of lead pipes in your water system to make things happen? That happened then because those are things that people need. And I constantly tell people all these Pollyanna ideas about tax cuts and what sounds good and what looks good. But at the end of the day, people want public infrastructure that works. They want their first responders, public safety, paid adequately and trained adequately. They want health care that's meaningful, that they want emergency rooms, if they can, in every county. And they want to make sure that public education is serving every student, that no matter how poor you are, no matter where you live, that you are entitled to an education that will give you an opportunity.
So as a result of the American Rescue Plan that you're referring to, passed in early 21, right after Joe Biden was elected, the deficit for that year at the federal level was roughly $2.8 trillion.
That he inherited from a misguided tax cut plan that the Trump administration instituted, which is consistent with every tax cut has been passed since Reagan. And this is not me talking. These are economists who tell you every tax cut plan has created a further gap in wealth, has benefited the top 5% disproportionately more than the working middle class. Every tax cut that has been passed since Reagan, the middle class has gotten a short-term tax cut, and then it expires. Even under Trump, it did the same thing. But every one of them has increased the debt because it increases inflation, because it benefits a small part of the population disproportionately to the rest of the population. So people who work every day end up getting a short-term tax cut. But at the end of the day, it increases inflation because they end up spending more money because everything goes up because you're spending all your money at the top 5% of the population.
So how would you explain the just pure fact, this is from IRS data, that revenues actually increased by about a third after the Trump tax cuts, but spending went up about 53%?
I don't know where you get your figures from, but I've been told,
the United States Treasury.
What my figures come from the economists, and part of it from the Office of Management and Budget, that says that our debt increased incrementally. I mean, it increased after that tax cut, and it increases after every one. As it's projected to increase, our debt increased under this big ugly bill that just got passed. I mean, it is a recurring cycle. Every time these tax cuts are paid, every time debt goes up, and everybody, they always talk about increasing the economy, trickle down, or whatever you want to call it. It never happens. It never happens. All we get is debt and inflation. That's all we ever get.
So real wages increased under President Trump's first term by about $6,300, under Joe Biden by about $1,000, and that all came at the end of the term. Real wages are up, and real wages, as you know, are a calculation of nominal wages minus inflation. So that would be after inflation. You don't really, even though your wages may go up on a nominal basis, if inflation is also rising, you don't really realize any benefit from that. So real wages increased. What would you like to see? What would you like to see?
What I would like to see, real wages may increase, but inflation increases, so it's a negative effect.
That's what real wages are, sir. Real wages are a calculation adjusted for inflation.
But if everything that you want to buy costs more money, then it ends up nullifying whatever gain.
But that's not what real wages are. That's after inflation.
I don't know what you mean real wages, but I know that people in the middle class.
It's a common term in economics.
Well, fine. All I know is that the facts bear out that people in the middle class, even on a short-term tax benefit, and for instance, in the state of Mississippi, we passed a tax cut that's going to cost us $2.2 billion, and it's about to go into effect immediately. The last tax cut was half a $1 billion, and no services are going to be increased. Everything is going to be cut. So at the end of the day, you get a $750. The median income in Mississippi is $42,000 a year. You're going to realize maybe a $750 tax cut, but the top 5% in this country, in this state, are going to realize a $42,000 tax cut, but the people in the middle are going to be paying for it every day.
How do they pay for it?
They pay for it because they're going to have to pay more for goods and services than they ever did. And then at $750, think about you're not going to have funding for roads. You're not going to have funding for health care. You're not going to have any of that because the money is gone.
We got a break.
The money is gone.
We got a break.
That's what Republicans do for you. They just take.
Okay.
They don't give. They just take.
You. We got a break.
They just take.
We're going to continue the discussion with Representative Robert Johnson on the other side. He's the House Minority Leader in the state of Mississippi. Coming right back. Video visiting with Representative Robert Johnson. He is the House Minority Leader, serves District 94. That includes Adams, Franklin, and Jefferson counties. All right, so before we went to break, you were showing or demonstrating that you're not very happy with tax cuts, both at the federal and state level, and you were sharing your concerns about that.
Well, my concern. Look, the concept of tax cuts. I mean, I worked on a tax cut bill with Philip Gunn, the first part of the 22 session, that created a balance. I mean, the bottom line in any tax cut you do, you have to have something. There has to be a balance. And we have passed tax cuts in this country, and we passed one in this state that you're cutting $2.2 billion out of the budget, but you're not filling that gap anywhere. And so efficiency seems to suggest when you're trying to be more efficient and more cost conscious that you're actually examining everything and taking everything into account. And I don't see that. I didn't see that happen in the big beautiful bill, and I didn't see that happen in the tax cut that we passed in the state legislature. There's a way to pass a tax cut, but as I keep hearing from supervisors and city leaders, they are beginning to understand as they look closer at what's about to happen that the things that they have to provide on a local level that the state was a part of, that they realize now they're going to be on their own.
That's interesting because the vast majority of the revenue that is raised at the local level, county and municipal level, of course, comes from other sources. Property taxes at the county level, and then and to some extent the city level and the school district level, and then of course their share of sales taxes as well.
Well, I'm just telling you what they're telling me, and because what has happened in the last 20 to 25 years is the state has recognized the deficiencies in some communities and some counties in terms of infrastructure, water systems, health care, and the state has been a big part of integrating state resources into making sure those people have those services. That won't be there anymore.
Okay.
And so now the counties will go back to 50 years ago. Well, whatever they got is what they have.
Well, is it possible, though, we could reduce some spending in other areas maybe that are a lower priority than taking care of some of these municipal infrastructure needs?
Somebody has to tell me, because everybody talks about that like we live in some rich, over-wealthy state. Mississippi is grossly deficient in terms of what we spend on things that are really important to people, whether it be roads and bridges. I mean, we are literally just in anywhere from 45th to 50th in health care, infrastructure, and public education. And so I don't know when people say, well, where can we cut? What can we streamline? I don't know where that is. We have a little over a $7 billion budget. I can tell you this about the state of Mississippi, and it's a testament to, I'll give credit to whoever the leadership has been for the last 10 or 15 years.
Okay.
We don't waste money. We don't waste money in the state, unless it's Department of Human Services, of course, and we pay people a bunch of money to, on volleyball courts and things that are unnecessary.
Okay.
That's an anomaly.
Gotcha.
For the most part, we don't waste money. We run a shoestring budget. We make sure that money is spent the way it's supposed to be spent. And so when you cut $2.2 billion out of a shoestring budget, you're not going to have, something is going to go lacking. And then consider where we are with our public employment retirement system. We've cut over 2,000 employees in the last 5 or 6 years, people who pay into the system. And people think, oh, well, we're reducing we're reducing our costs. No, you're not. You're contracting with other people to do the work that these state employees are doing. So those same state employees end up going and work for somebody else, so they're not paying into the retirement system, and they don't have the benefit of the health insurance that the state is paying. So we spend the money. We didn't stop spending the money. We just stopped paying state employees. We started giving the contracts to a private developer, a private entity.
So a couple of things. We have 140 some odd school districts in the state.
Yeah.
Are there opportunities that you could support consolidation of some of those school districts to cut some of the back office costs?
I grew up in a consolidated school district. One thing I do agree with, whether Republican or Democrats, we have too many school districts.
Okay.
I'm even open to some counties joining together and joining their school districts.
Okay.
I mean, if you're a county that has 3,000 people and your neighboring county has 2,500 people, and then one of those counties actually has 2 school districts, you have two too many.
Okay.
That you ought to be those combined resources. When even in one of those counties, school buses are driving 20 miles to pick up a kid. You might as well combine those resources, combine that administration, and make it happen.
Do you know the speaker actually floated the idea of addressing that in the past session? It just didn't get any traction. Is that something you'd work with him on?
I definitely would work with him on it, but it has to be something you work with people on. I mean, you know what I've seen happen in the legislature is, somebody will willy-nilly pick out there are too many school districts in this area. Yeah, maybe. Well, why don't we figure out an overall system of what works? How many students make up a good school district? How many is too many? How many are too little? I'm definitely open to that.
Well, I agree. I think it's got to be done methodically and thoughtfully.
Absolutely.
But perhaps a task force makes sense to dig into that situation and make some recommendations.
Yeah. I think that'll be a great idea.
A bipartisan task force, now that you're saying you're supporting it.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I'm open to that.
Well, that could save some money, is the point I'm making.
That absolutely could save. And you just gave an example. When people talk about how to run everything more efficiently, you just gave an example of one area we could look at. If we really want to save money, we could look at something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so that's certainly one area.
But we hadn't done that. But,
all right. Yeah. Well, the state auditor, for example, has produced reports where he found lots of what appeared to be unnecessary, wasteful spending, but no action's been taken on that. And I haven't dug into that to see how much of that's relevant.
I haven't either. But if he spent $1.2 million or somewhere thereabouts to have a study to determine
2, I think
it's $2 million.
Yeah.
I just trust that somebody did some work.
Okay.
And look, one thing. And look, I have to be careful because I'm not a fan of the state auditor, but I have not been hesitant to give him credit that he has actually taken the time to look at where we could be more efficient. And nobody else has done that.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to get any traction in the legislature, and I'm not sure how much of that is valid and legitimate, and how much of it needs some nuance and context and perhaps explanation.
I'm not a Republican, and I'm not part of the Republican leadership. But if another Republican, if we were all Democrats, and the Democrats said, "Look, I've done this. You ought to look at it," I'd look at it. I don't know why the governor, lieutenant governor, or the speaker hadn't taken the time to sit down and vet that with one of our committees.
So you're clearly opposed to the bill that will phase out the income tax in Mississippi, and that's over a 14-year period from today.
I'm opposed to in concept to two things. The way it was put together, I don't think there was enough.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I just what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
That bill, we came up with a super tax cut bill in less than a year. I don't think you do something that monumental, that's all encompassing without spending some time and then getting legislators' input and spending some time with it. And I can tell you, to a man, Republican and Democrat, even though a whole lot of them voted for it, you can't find. I could hardly find anybody that knew what was in the bill.
Okay.
And look, I'm a big proponent. I'm a child of.
You're talking about in the legislature?
In the legislature.
Didn't know what was in the bill.
Didn't know, couldn't tell you where anything was, what it did.
Okay.
They said, well, give me a summary sheet. Let me look at it. I'm a lawyer. Part of what I'm trained to do is read. I can't walk into a courtroom without reading.
Okay.
I'm a child of a school teacher. My mother still says that the basic thing, if you teach kids how to add, subtract, read, and write, they can learn, figure out anything.
Okay.
Computer, AI, and nobody reads. We can't get people to read.
Are your concerns that this is going to cause a budgetary problem down the road for the state? Is that the concern?
I'm not a betting man, but if I was a betting man, I would put money on it's definitely going to cause some.
Well, then, do you support Representative Johnson raising taxes to have more money at the state level for more programs? Just wanted to keep it the same.
I don't support either concept. I support thoughtful consideration of what works.
Okay.
What do we need, and is it worth spending money on it? Look, we're cutting We couldn't tell. Let me go back to a perfect example, the big, beautiful bill. So we went through this whole thing. Well, I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican, where we were doing energy efficiency and we were doing, clean energy. Whether you agree with it or not, we did it. To the extent that we spent close to $300 million paying for a battery plant in Northeast Mississippi. Now we passed a bill without, and look, when Marjorie Taylor Greene tells me I don't know what's in the bill, I believe her. When she tells me she voted for a bill that she didn't know what was in it. So we got a $300 million investment in Northeast Mississippi that may actually tank. It may not even happen.
Have they said that to you?
No, I've just, every article I read says all of these energy manufacturers, these battery plants, these things we invested money in, that money may be gone.
Well, that was because of the subsidies that the Biden administration placed on those investments, made available for those investments. There's more government subsidies. It's corporate welfare.
All right,
So you're supporting corporate welfare?
No, I'm not supporting corporate welfare. I didn't support, no.
I believe those plants are going to be fine.
Okay, well, I'm worried about them.
Okay, that's
I'm
fair
worried
enough.
about them because we spent $300 million.
If you could keep talking, we can continue. You good? Can you stay? You got to go.
No, I can stay.
Okay, we got Representative Robert Johnson.
I'm usually not asked to stay, but stay.
No, you're welcome. We're coming right back. Studio visiting with Representative Robert Johnson. He's the House Minority Leader. Just following up, Representative Johnson, I understand your concerns about the investments the state is making or the incentive package the state provided to the EV factory in Marshall County, and that is a joint venture of 4 companies, one of which, actually 2 of which, make the vehicles, the commercial trucks that are going to consume the batteries this plant will make.
Yeah.
This incentive package was a little different than some of the mistakes made in the past. I think you'd have to agree in that it does have clawback features. They've got to achieve certain employment and investment levels in order to receive those incentives, and a good bit of that's just for local infrastructure, just improving. You said that you think we need to do that. This improves the roads and bridges and so forth that service the factory, and some of that is inside the fence aid as well, financial support. But they got to hire the number of people at the wages they committed to and spend the amount of money. All of that's part of the agreement. So the state is somewhat protected in that regard.
I'm for it. I'm for it. I just expressed my concern with what they did in the president's most recent bill, and you and I talked off camera. Yeah. You alleviated some of my concerns. But that's what I'm concerned about. But I do say everywhere I go, if you gave Issaquah County $286 million, they could build a new city and create economic development that would be meaningful in it. $286 million in a small community, and that's a small community in Northeast Mississippi, makes an entirely just an incredible difference.
Okay.
Period.
Well, this is a major investment this company's making in kind of a rural area of Mississippi that's going to expected to create a couple thousand jobs at an average wage of $66K. And if they don't get the incentives.
I want to see more rural communities receive the same kind of benefit. Because there's a mindset with some people in this state that feel like communities are dying and then maybe they just need to die. I said no. I mean, economic development is purposeful where you want to invest, and and another cliche is that we're only as strong as our weakest link. We need to. There are places in the state of Mississippi that just land is cheap. The workforce training has been done. We ought to make some effort to move away just from Madison, Rankin, and DeSoto counties and start doing some economic development in some other places.
Well, the Speaker and Representative Trey Lamar, House Ways and Means Committee, their contention is that this bill that you oppose, which phases out the income tax, will in fact stimulate economic development and investment in our state.
Well, they say that, but they haven't shown me how that's supposed to happen. Nobody's been able to explain to me on the floor of the House in Ways and Means meetings.
Okay.
I said, now tell me how that translates.
Okay.
Nobody's been able to tell me that.
I would say that people and companies tend to gravitate to areas where they can make a living and send less to the government and be less oppressed with regulations and an overbearing government.
Where does that happen? Where's that happen? I mean, they did the same tax cut in Kansas, and the Republicans had to come back after 10 years and say, it doesn't work. Arizona almost bankrupt the state. Everywhere they've done this, and places where they don't have income tax, like Florida and Tennessee, they have high property taxes. There's something somewhere that you pay for.
Yeah, so I actually agree with you in that respect, that the government's going to get their money somehow, some way.
Right.
But I do think that spreading this out over a long period of time gives time for these policies to stimulate the economy, to serve as a catalyst for economic growth. But you still got to have that.
We didn't do that. We didn't do it over a long period of time. We were prepared to do that. Well,
that's not a long period of time?
That was before we moved the decimal point. Remember
still 14 years.
Yeah, but it's going to move a lot quicker than
14 years.
It's going to take.
The most you can. So once you get to the 3% mark in 2030, the most you can reduce the rate at that point in any year is 0.3%. I agree. The trigger is going to be easily achievable, and we're going to hit the maximum 0.3%. So the thing about it is, Representative Johnson, is that you got people who are mad that it's going to take 14 years.
Well, I'm just telling you. Look, we can argue about it. We can speculate what it's going to do. But history has told me, and my research has told me, that what they suggest is going to happen never happens.
Okay.
It has never happened. In no state that has passed the same kind of tax cut has it ever happened the way they say it's going to happen.
Okay.
It just doesn't happen.
All right.
Nobody can give me an example where it has happened, where it has worked.
Let's turn our attention to the big, beautiful bill, which no Democrat voted for, as you know, and I suspect that Democrats in the state of Mississippi are not happy about this legislation either.
Well, I only know what I've read about it. I'm like Marjorie Taylor Greene and some other Republicans. I hadn't read the bill.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't even know exactly. I just know what people tell me.
Your party leader, Representative Chuck Taylor, says that Medicaid will be cut for over 200,000 Mississippians.
Well,
where did he get that figure from?
I don't know where he got his figure from, but every expert, nationally and otherwise, has said that people are going to lose benefit. A lot of people are going to get kicked off of Medicaid
because they're not working. Do you oppose?
No. It's not because they're not working.
Well,
now, let me get this fiction. Let me get this fiction straight.
All right.
Medicaid, the law requires you could have to be disabled, elderly, or a child.
Right.
Otherwise, you got to have a job. That's the law. Nope.
That's not true.
That's the law right now.
That's absolutely not true.
Now, who is getting Medicaid benefits who doesn't work?
That's not true.
Tell me who gets who doesn't work.
So first, it only applies to the able-bodied adult coverage group. We don't have that in Mississippi. We only have basic traditional.
What able-bodied person gets Medicaid who doesn't work?
Those that are in school or involved in community service or seeking work or
no
caretakers, all of that qualifies.
Nobody in community services get free Medicaid. Now, people who are in school, people who are students,
there are no requirement now.
People who are students, which I think they should get Medicaid coverage. I want them to be healthy and finish school.
There's no federal requirement that someone is working to receive Medicaid benefits. That's why it's included in the law, and the Democrats are all mad about it.
Nobody is mad about people.
Okay, so then nobody should lose. There's coverage.
Let me say this.
Okay.
What's wrong with if a person works, they bring in a check? This is my paycheck. I work.
Well,
why do they have to fill out an 8-page application? Or why do they have to have...
I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of dishonest people, unfortunately, that scam the system.
Right,
and it necessitates getting a lot of it. It's like, why do I have to lock my doors?
That's why Georgia, in instituting this work requirement, spent over $5 million.
I have been very critical of that myself.
Well, but it's also happened in Arkansas too. You end up kicking people off who are without question eligible because they didn't go through this rigorous, unnecessary application process. Look,
what do you think?
Let me stop you for a second.
Okay.
What is it about Medicaid? Is medicine? It's health care. No, it's not. You're not giving anybody a check. No, look, I'm a 66-year-old, relatively healthy man. I avoid the doctor every chance I get. So what? Nobody out there is begging to go to the doctor.
I agree with you on that.
I'm like I still call them Ingalls, but Ingalls. I remember this so distinctly. 20 years ago, the CEO spoke to us and he said, "We provide insurance coverage to all our employees, but we also have a clinic on site."
That's right.
I said, "Why would you do both?" He said, the cost of providing health care and keeping people healthy makes us a more productive plant. I feel the same way about our citizenry. that if you provide health care to people, make them more productive. If a man is walking around with high blood pressure and he after about 4 hours he has to sit for 2 hours before he can finish working on a plumbing contract, when all he has to do is be able to get medicine, that is a benefit to this economy. Keeping people healthy is a benefit. Nobody's out there, nobody's running around trying to figure out, how do I get that Medicaid? Nobody's doing that except they want to stay healthy, period.
Well, I agree with you that it's misunderstood that Medicaid or payments, the funding of Medicaid and the flow of funds through Medicaid go to the providers.
That's where it goes.
It's not cash money that goes to the recipients. But the taxpayers, I think, Representative Johnson, have a right to make sure that, okay, these people who are eligible for Medicaid are truly eligible, because
what about if they're truly sick and I want to make sure they stay healthy? What's wrong with that? What's wrong? Look, we have the highest poverty rate in the country, but that poverty rate is primarily promoted not by people sitting at home, by working poor people who don't have a living wage, people who don't have health care coverage, people who go to work every day, whether they're sick or not. But they could be a whole lot more productive. They could be much more of a contributor to our economy and to our overall welfare in this state if we made sure they were healthy when they went to work.
This bill doesn't deny any of that.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
So asking a person to prove that they're eligible twice a year?
That's not the part of the bill. That's not the part of the bill.
Well, what
that's
are you
the
talking
problem.
about?
I'm talking about over $550 million cut out of, for what? I mean, this is just out
that
for what?
assumes that people don't fill the paperwork out.
Why would you assume that? Why wouldn't you make sure?
Because that's all they got to do.
This work requirement is have a work requirement.
Okay.
Nobody has a problem with a work requirement.
Okay.
But make it a work requirement that actually just all it measures is whether or not you work. People, there's somebody you suggesting to me there's somebody who doesn't work who's coming into the Medicaid office so they can get what? Opioids or high blood pressure meds? I mean, what are they coming in? What is the incentive?
Then there should be no argument.
What is the incentive?
You shouldn't have any problem with it.
You all shouldn't have an argument. Nobody is trying to get medicine. Nobody is trying to cheat somebody to get medicine. Do you know anybody who is saying, do you know how I can go get that high blood pressure med? Nobody's doing that. Come on.
We got to go. We appreciate you coming in, Representative Robert
Thank you
Johnson.
for having me.
Thank you. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.